We're ready to start.
Right, everyone, I'll just quickly introduce John Rolfe, who's a reader and researcher here. He showed curiosity, came to a coffee gathering, and we nabbed him for an interesting little project that he's going to tell you something about.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. I'll be very brief, but the material in front of you relates to what you can see from the terrace, which is a view of the Clarendon Building. So I suppose since 2015, when we opened here, there's been this remarkable view across the road to the Clarendon Building, which was the first sort of purpose-built printing house for the university. So they've been printing going on the university before that, and I believe 2028 will be 500 years since printing's been going on here. But what we've got, there are four things for you to look at. So first of all, here there's a Bible from 1717, and you'll notice that the frontispiece there, you've got an engraving of the Clarendon Building. And what I've been particularly interested in is the statues on top of the building. And one of the reasons for looking at the prints is to see what they tell us about which statues were there and where they were on the building. So the first print here, I think, dates just before the statues were actually set up. So it dates from 1717, and the statues were put up in about November 1717. So it's not really accurate. So it predates the statues of the nine Muses. So they're statues of the 9 classical Muses. When we move to the next print here, which is by William Williams, this first one's by Michael Burgers. This is pretty accurate, although not highly detailed. So topographical printmaking hasn't developed as it does later. And I'm very interested, if you take a look at these statues here, one of the things about them is that they're identifiable as the individual 9 Muses. They've been made so that we can see which one is which. So I don't know if you're familiar with them all. It's probably easier just to say what they represent in English rather than to give their Greek names. But if we whiz around here, we've got love poetry, astronomy, dance, music, tragedy, comedy, rhetoric, epic poetry, and history. So these statues, 2 of them fell down. One of them in 1810, that's this one here, and the other one I think before 1774. And in 1974, two of them were replaced with fiberglass statues. But I think that for all sorts of very good reasons, an error was made there. So if you look very carefully at this statue, and I say it's not highly detailed, that is, I believe, the correct Muse. It should be on top of the portico here. What we'll see when we go upstairs is, in fact, this Muse is in this position. So the Muse of Tragedy is in the central position on the portico. And again, if we look at this is a new version of the Bible that you've seen down here, John Basket Bible. This is 1739, that one's 1717. And if you look, the print's been altered. So it's more of an attempt to be topographical. And there's an attempt to represent the actual statues of the Muses. So these 2 show the Muse in the correct position, more or less the correct position. There's some question about that one, I would say. And I'm very, very grateful to Joe Maddox for doing some research the other day for me and finding this book, which I think is a numismatics book, but it's got 2 images of the Clarendon Building on it. And if you look closely on this one to your left, I think you can see the figure of tragedy in its original position. Also interestingly, you can see that it's holding a sword in its left hand, which I think is what we're seeing upstairs. And then you can see another small view here, but I think it's too small to make out the actual individual statues of the Muses. So obviously there's a huge amount more we could say about this, and we're hoping to make a display in 2024 to mark 50 years since since the last restoration of these statues. So we've got this wonderful view from the terrace here at the Weston Library, and across the street from us you can see the Clarendon Building, which is undergoing renovation at the moment. And that's really why I sort of came to speak to people who are working on the project, because I thought they really need to know what I've been finding out. So the statue, what I didn't tell you downstairs is that the statues are made of lead. The original statues, which were put up in 1711, are made of lead, but two of them were replaced in 1974. And the two replacements are made of fiberglass, covered with resin, sort of impregnated with lead powder. And the ones that are replaced are the one right in the centre in front of you, on the top of the portico there, and the one on the back right-hand side, which you can't see. There's no reason why anybody would be able to answer these questions, but these statues were designed so that the Muses are recognisable, you know, by name and also by the sort of particular area of knowledge that they inspire. So I don't know if anyone's familiar with any of them, but the question is which one should be in the centre. So where that fiberglass statue is now, which muse should be in the most important position, the sort of position of honour? Does anybody know her name or the area of knowledge that she inspires?
Yeah.
Cleo. There for you to reflect on. Of course, you all know the answer.
Yeah, historiography.
Yeah. It's the muse of epic poetry, Calliope, who should be there. And what we've got at the moment is tragedy standing there. So tragedy, I believe, should be
Quite
in the
appropriate.
left-hand corner, to the left of comedy. Comedy and tragedy. Now, when I say that, you might think, well, that's obvious, but there's no particular rule that says you have to have comedy and tragedy together as a pair. There's no particular rule, as far as I can see, about any pairing of the muses. The only rule that, sort of by precedent, if you like, by tradition, is that Calliope has to be in the middle, because she's the big sister, she's the chief of the muses. So that's something that I think would be really exciting to see if there's anything we can do about that by 2024. And that's not an easy challenge for all sorts of planning and other kinds of reasons. But